And we will go ahead and get started. So, happy almost a Thursday. Happy Wednesday to everyone. Hope everyone is having an awesome week so far. I am going to be leading the training today because Nicole and Dan are currently in California for their own little training that they're doing with their business coach. And so, y'all are with me today, and I'm so excited to just take you through Instagram stories. Our theme for today is how to get more engagement with Instagram stories. So I would love just to hear from everyone if you're on right now, and just type in the chat if you are using Instagram stories. And just tell me how often, whether it's multiple times every day, a few times per week, infrequently, or never. Hi, Beth. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Rachel. Ellie, hi. Okay, I'm just going to read through these. I am, but just a few times a week. I want to get more consistent. 3 times per week. Hi, Gleneth. Hi. A few times per week, every day, but not great at it. Okay, awesome. I'm going to read through these while we are talking. But I'm here just to talk about why Instagram stories is really, really important for getting more engagement, as well as just growing your business. And especially if you're an influencer or you're a food blogger, this can be your way to really connect with people one-on-one and just start to build relationships and connections. That is the best thing you can do on social media. As you build more connections, you're going to grow your business. So before we dive in, Nicole and I talked about this a little bit on a call last week. I just wanted to touch on some Instagram photos because we got some questions from you guys when Nicole introduced me to the group. And yes, I can meet everyone for sure. Thank you for that reminder. Okay, so one thing that I want to do really quickly is just go over Instagram photos and what's trending right now. So we're going to pause talking about Instagram stories and go into the Instagram feed. This was a question that I got in the thread when Nicole was introducing me. And Beth, this is where we're also going to tackle your question about quotes, graphic quotes. And so just a few touching points here for Instagram photos. Just be aware that as a whole, the feed is trending away from Pinterest-style graphics that are obviously formatted to be square. So just think about when you're trying to gather more content, you do want photos that have minimal to no text, unless it is public. And Beth asked on the Facebook group earlier, are graphic quotes working on Instagram? And I don't have any specific data to answer your question. I would just test. I know for myself, graphic quotes don't get as much reach and engagement as they did even like 4 months ago. So I've actually stopped using graphic quotes. And I know some of you do use them, and I'd be interested to hear, like Glenn, if those posts get good engagement and you just get some good feedback from your followers. But for me, I was seeing a lot lower engagement and a lot lower reach when I was using graphics that had quotes. So I will save them for stories, or I will just have a photo of myself or a stock photo or a flat lay and introduce the quote that way. So see how it goes when you play around with either graphics or using photos, but putting the quote within the caption, within the copy that you're writing. I'd be really interested to hear if one or the other works for you. But for me personally, for my business, graphics that were quotes weren't really working. And so I've sort of phased away from that. And sorry guys, I lost my internet. Can everyone see and hear me now? Okay, thank you. I lost internet for like a quick second and I am back. But anyway, back to the graphics about the quotes. Try it out and see if that works for you. All right, the next point I wanted to make about your Instagram photos is, let me see if I can find my little notes up here. Another thing that you want to keep in mind is that you want to have a similar look and feel across your feed. I think, Jessica, maybe you asked the question, I don't know if she's on here right now, about having a consistent feel and a consistent feed and staying with your branding. Beth and I worked on this a long time ago, so taking a look at how you want your brand to be conveyed by your audience. So that is filters you're using, types of photos you're using, and just sort of your overall brand aesthetic. Make some notes about the color scheme that you're using for your brand, things that you want people to feel when they're looking through your feed, and just kind of starting to curate that for your feed. So I would recommend using some sort of editing app to edit your photos. If you have an iPhone, the ones that are really good are Snapseed and VSCO. That's VSCO. Those are my two go-to apps for editing photos, and that can really help you just have an overall brand aesthetic that you're really happy about. And the idea behind that is that when your followers are scrolling through their newsfeed, you want them to be able to recognize your brand before they even know that it's you. That is a really, really, really good indicator of your success in reaching people and connecting with people, and if people can really resonate with your brand. So just keeping in mind those two things when it comes to Instagram photos in the feed. Minimal to no text unless it's a quote, and as well as getting a similar look and feel across your feed and using those photo editing apps to stay really consistent, especially if you're using mobile photos. So VSCO, Snapseed, obviously if you're a food photographer, you've got Lightroom and Photoshop. All right, so I just want to make sure we covered that, and now we're going to dive into Instagram stories. So the reason why you guys all need to be using Instagram stories consistently and really having a plan and strategy behind it is because social media isn't just about promotion, right? It's about connections and it's about relationships. I love sharing this stat because I really do think it's true. 1 in 5 Instagram stories gets a direct message, which I think is pretty darn awesome, right? If you can get 1 out of every 5 stories, if you can get some good feedback, some engagement, some direct messages, there's your window of opportunity to start making a relationship with someone, right? Start connecting with people and eventually start converting them, whether it's getting them to look at your blog or to get you to purchase a product that you have or a service that you're offering. It really is your chance to have one-on-one conversation, which will eventually lead to conversions down the road. So that's all the more reason to have a specific Instagram story strategy. Another reason why I love Instagram stories, especially as you're trying to grow your business, is because it's a fun, unfiltered way to showcase your brand without necessarily worrying about brand aesthetics. So we just talked about that, right? Whereas in the feed, you've got your beautiful photos, you've got everything curated, you've got everything planned out, everything has to look a certain way or feel a certain way. On Instagram stories, you don't really have to worry about that. You can show a really unfiltered look at your brand, whether it's behind the scenes, or a day in the life of, or how you're making something, if you're making a recipe, or what it looks like when you're setting up your camera to do a photo shoot, things like that. And we'll talk about the different types of Instagram stories so that you know exactly what to share every day. I'll give you some really, really good tips that you can walk away with today after the training. Another reason to use Instagram stories is that they're really simple, especially if you kind of know the nuts and bolts of how Instagram stories works. They're simple, they're easy to do if you can plan ahead. If you're creating 5 to 10 stories a day, that can take you 5 minutes. So when it comes down to time, it really doesn't take that much time. And if you can spend a little bit of time to make really quality, long-term connections and just build relationships with people, it's going to give you a really, really good return in the long run and help you grow your business and just reach more people. The last reason I would love to see all of you use Instagram stories more and with a little bit more strategy behind it is that you can use stories to drive traffic. I already see a lot of you doing this. You can drive traffic to a recent Instagram post, the latest post in your feed, a blog post, podcast episodes, whether you are a host of one or whether you're a guest on one. You can really use Instagram stories to complement your overall presence on social media, right? It doesn't all have to be done in the feed. You can sort of complement what you're doing in your business life or your personal life with Instagram stories. So those are all the reasons why you should be using Instagram stories regularly, especially because I noticed when I asked you guys the question, some of you said, not frequently enough, or not consistently, or I'd love to learn how to use it more consistently. And that's what we're going to go over today. So now that you know the why, let's go over the what. So when we're talking about an Instagram story strategy and a strategy that will help you grow your business and help you reach more people and make more connections, what are you supposed to share? I like to categorize the types of Instagram stories into 4 main ones. And I created a little document that I think we're going to make a little guide later. So if you're not taking notes now, or if you're listening, if you're watching the replay, no worries, we'll get this out to you. But the 4 main categories of Instagram stories are promotion, and we'll go over all these: brand awareness, feedback and engagement, and then trust building. And I can type all of those in the chat here in just a sec. But going back to the first one, which is promotion, this is what I think we all normally think of when we think about Instagram stories, right? We're thinking of how can we promote ourselves? How can we share about what we're doing? How can we really, really, really get people to notice our blog, notice our site, notice our services? So that is anything related to new blog content, specials you are currently offering, especially as we come to the holidays. If you guys have holiday recipes, even from last year, now's a really, really good time to repurpose all of that and start curating your Instagram stories content. So specials, sponsorships, obviously a great way to talk about them on Instagram stories, as well as sneak peeks. Are you currently working on a recipe that you want to give people a little sneak peek and get them really excited so that they can either subscribe to your email newsletter from seeing an exciting sneak peek in your Instagram story, or maybe it's just reminding them so that you can stay top of mind so that when you do publish your blog post, they remember, right? They remember when you gave them the sneak peek and they are ready to go to your website and check out your latest blog post. So that's promotion, right? So things we think of naturally when we're talking about our business and talking about what we offer to people. The second category is brand awareness, and that is kind of the overall what you're all about. So brand awareness involves FAQs, so frequently asked questions. Maybe you've had a lot of people ask what kind of recipes you make. Could you make a text-only Instagram story where you have a little Q&A? For example, like Q:, what sorts of recipes do you create? Your answer would be what you do, right? Or do you ever do Whole30 recipes or paleo recipes? Those might be frequently asked questions that readers ask you or followers ask you on social media. I've also seen people take screenshots of their direct messages with their followers. Let's say a follower sends you a DM and asks you a question. You can answer that question, take a screenshot of that, and crop the photo so it looks like you want it to look, and share it as a part of your Instagram stories. And if the person doesn't want to be showcased, you can just use a little marker and black out their little profile picture or their username. And that's a great way to start building your frequently asked questions. Now, you don't have to get your facts from questions that people have already asked you. Maybe these are things you want people to know. So can you create a fact set series of stories, or maybe you hop on and use the front-facing camera and just help answer questions for people? Allie, I know you're doing more of like the venison and the game. Are there frequently asked questions that maybe you've gotten from direct messages or that you've seen people ask on your blog or on your Instagram posts that you can compile into this really, really helpful FAQ series? So that is one example of how to use facts. You can also do a Q&A. So you can actually hop on Instagram stories. We already talked about this a little bit. Show the front-facing camera and maybe have preloaded questions that you're just kind of firing off and answering for people. Another way to drive brand awareness for who you are and what you do is to show some how-tos. I know a lot of you here are food and fitness experts, and so giving some how-tos, right? Not being afraid of giving away something for free, knowing that you're not giving away all your secrets. What you're really doing is offering value to your followers. So let's say you've got like a killer macaroni and cheese recipe that is already on the blog, or maybe it's a sneak peek. Can you show people how to, I don't know, boil the pasta if people don't know how to boil it. That was a bad example. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. But something that is really easy for you and that comes naturally to you that maybe will be very new information for somebody else. For myself, for my business, because I do a lot of social media, a lot of my how-tos involve how to be more present on social media. A couple weeks ago, I did a little series on how to do a front-facing camera series of videos on Instagram stories. And so I walked people through, you got to find good lighting. You got to make sure you're not too close to the camera. You got to make sure you add your captions on your Instagram stories, which we'll talk about. So that's an example of a how-to, right? I'm not giving away all my secrets, but I'm certainly giving away lots of value so that my followers can start to trust me, right? I'm building credibility. I'm building trust so that when the time comes, they're going to want to work with me. And for food bloggers, they're going to be more apt to visit your website or actually cook a recipe that you've spent days and weeks testing and retesting. So the how-tos can be really helpful for building trust and really, really driving brand awareness. The next part of brand awareness is who you are and how you serve. Right, this might be less of your actual brand, but more about you. What are things that you value? How do you help people? Can you share any testimonials where people have tried your recipes or have bought your products or hired you for your services and really, really loved how you helped them? Sharing those stories and those wins, I think, can really help people understand that, yes, you do work with people, you do serve, and you do help. So those are the main ideas for brand awareness and some points that you can use when you start to create your own Instagram stories. Do we have any questions? I feel like I haven't taken a breath yet. If you have any questions, just type it in the chat and I'll do my best to look at the questions and talk to you at the same time and answer them. Okay, well, we'll just move on. So remember, we've got promotion, we've got brand awareness as far as types of Instagram stories go. We also have feedback and engagement. So this is you trying to get your customers and your followers to get in the habit of responding to you and engaging with you, right? From a logistical standpoint, this is great for the algorithm. The more engagement you get, the more Instagram sees that you have a relationship with your followers, the more your content is going to be seen by your followers. So just thinking about the back end of things, it's always great to get more engagement and to encourage engagement. And you can do that by using polls in Instagram stories. That's the little sticker in Instagram stories. You can use calls to action. For example, visit my latest blog post or go to the link in my bio or send me a direct message and I'll tell you the link or I'll tell you more about it. Things like that. Taryn is asking or saying, I always seem to struggle with engagement on stories. Barely anyone answers polls or DMs me. So Taryn, something I would say to that is, have you asked your followers what they're interested in seeing? My first recommendation for anyone who's looking to get more engagement or more DMs is really, really knowing your audience. I know Nicole has some really good guides for that, but the more you know your audience and are just aware of how you can help them and what sort of help they want from you, you're going to be able to do calls to actions or set up polls that they'll want to answer. So I think knowing your audience will help. And Taryn, I think sometimes even just asking, oh, you have asked, but I don't get many answers back. Let me think on that. There's going to be a way. I know I can help you. But yeah, that's good feedback. So sometimes it just takes asking again and again. People don't always see your Instagram stories and your posts. It's just the reality. People aren't going to see every single one. So sometimes just being okay with coming back and asking again is always helpful. So I've asked my audience and they gave me answers. And then when I post what they want, it doesn't get much interaction, but other posts do. That is good feedback as well. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to think on that too. That's a really, really good question or a good point to bring up. I don't know the answer to that right away, but I want to think on that and I want to come back to that. I just think it all there's little factors, right? It's what time are you posting? Are people that answered your questions on when you're posting, whether it's Instagram stories or in the feed? There's a lot of little factors that play into visibility of your post. And I think being okay with just trying different things, testing out different measures, trying polls and questions, or the new sliding feature, I think can all help as well. Okay, I'm looking through just to make sure I covered all the questions. Would advise to post more stories versus regular posts? That's a good question. I would do both. I would try to be consistent with both, and consistency for you will mean something different than maybe somebody else, right? I think people that are on the feed will continue to be on there. So if you can continue to reach your audience that's looking at the feed and engaging with you that way, I would continue to use that. However, more and more people are using stories. Some people will go to stories first before they go to the feed. So if you can get them in stories, I think that's great as well. And we'll talk about frequency, but I think for busy business owners like us and bloggers and influencers, I think if you can post about 5 to 10 stories a day, that's a really good starting point. It's not overwhelming. It can take you like 5 minutes max. And then as far as the feed goes, at least once a day, I think is important with breaks. Give yourself some grace. Don't pressure yourself to post twice a day if the quality will decrease. Does that make sense? So whether we're talking about the Instagram stories or the Instagram feed, quality always over quantity, and keeping in mind that your business is more than just Instagram, right? It's other things as well. Rachel says, that's me. I watch stories first before I scroll to my feed. I do that too. Okay, so if you have more questions, go ahead and ask, but let's go back to the 4 types of Instagram stories. We talked about promotion. We talked about brand awareness. We talked about feedback and engagement. I just have a few more helpful tips for you on that. So there are polls, there are calls to action. We talked about testimonials when it comes to brand awareness, and also resharing other people's stories. So if you use an Instagram for Business account, or your account is public, you are going to be able to share stories that people have tagged you in, which is awesome. For example, this morning I reshared a story that Nicole talked about me being on this training. And that's a really good way to just show your people some love if they're supporting you, if they're tagging you when they make a recipe, if they're tagging you because you helped them in some way. Can you reshare that and just add maybe just a little bit of text in reflection or as a thank you? Just giving your people some love, I think, is always, always helpful and helps them keep coming back to you. And then we've got the question sticker. I love the question sticker because it is so much fun, and you'll notice that as you continue to use it and as your people get used to responding to your question sticker, you're going to get some really interesting stuff. I know, Allie, you've used this about like questions, ask me anything, and you've gotten some really interesting stuff, right? I love using the question sticker to just have people either ask me anything or ask me questions about social media or Instagram. Beth says, yes, my favorite way to highlight my client work is to share the IG stories that I've been tagged in. Yeah, I love that. So Beth is already doing that. I encourage all of you to do that as soon as someone shares something and tags you in their Instagram story. Allie says, yes, you're right. They do need to get used to it. It isn't instant. Yeah, so Taryn, and for anyone else who responded that it's really hard for you to get engagement, I would keep practicing, and I would encourage you to be okay with, asking for the feedback in different ways and repeatedly. I think you are going to start getting engagement. And if you have questions, just send me a message on Facebook or let's talk about it so I can help you get more engagement. Jess, can you now add 30 hashtags on stories, or is it still around 10? I don't know the answer to that. I know in the feed you can add up to 30 hashtags, but I don't know of there being a limit on stories. I haven't tried adding more than a couple, but I'm always learning too, and that's a really, really good point. I will find out for you and come back to you, so I'll write that down. Thank you for that good question. So the answer is, I don't know, but I'm going to find out when it comes to stories, but I know in the feed you are at 30 is the limit. Allie says, I would say 5+ times before they get into it. Yeah, I would say that too. I really had to prime people to get used to engaging with my stories. And sometimes I get nothing, and that's okay. Sometimes there's crickets, and sometimes I get an overwhelming amount of questions or feedback, and it feels really good. What about putting hashtags in the description versus in the comments? Jen, are you talking about the feed or Instagram stories? I'm guessing the feed, because the stories, there's only one place. Yeah. I answered my question. Okay, so putting hashtags in the feed, whether it's in the caption or in the comments. I listened to this podcast, the social media podcast, where they actually test different social media ideas, but they'll do it in a really cool way. They'll do it kind of scientifically. They'll have a hypothesis, they'll have a control, and they'll test something for a few weeks. And they did test this idea. What's better, putting hashtags in the caption versus in the comments? And they found that hashtags put in the caption actually get more engagement than in the comments. I know when I first heard that, I was like, oh, that's such a bummer, because I think it looks better if I kind of hide them in the comments. But I've started putting my hashtags in the captions, and I think it's helped. I haven't taken a huge dive into the numbers, but just from like a quick glance, it has helped a lot more to put the hashtags in the caption. So you can test it out on your own and see, but based on their experiment, they said it was better in the captions. Yeah. Yes, it worked better for you too. Awesome. Okay, so we talked about feedback and engagement when it comes to Instagram stories. The last type of Instagram stories is trust building. I love these because you have so much room for creativity here, and you can really show your personality. This is where you can kind of shine and really allow people to get to know you as a person, right? Not as a blogger, not as a business owner, but as a person, and really help people emotionally connect to you so they can trust you and want to build a relationship with you, because that is the biggest way you're going to get long-term readers, long-term followers, long-term customers, is by building trust. So how the heck are you supposed to do that? Through a few things. Behind the scenes, I think, are great. So like I said earlier, before you do a shoot, can you show people your brief camera setup, or the props you use, or the time of day that works best for you at your house? Behind the scenes can really let people in and almost makes them feel kind of special, right? Like they have like an insider's look into how you run your business, how you run your shoot, or whatever it is that your business may be. So behind the scenes is a great way to do it. You can ask for feedback there too. You know, does anyone else shoot with a Nikon or a Canon or something like that, just to get them to respond to you? Another way to build trust, day in the life. I wouldn't recommend doing this often, because if you do a day in the life every single day, that doesn't really leave room for the other types of Instagram stories like promotion or brand awareness or feedback and engagement. And so maybe, I don't know, once a week, once every couple weeks, you figure it out. But a day in the life can also be an awesome way to build trust, because the reality is our followers are nosy. They want to know what we do in our daily life. Are you an early riser? Do you have any pets? Are you going to share about your pets on Instagram stories? I talk about my dog probably a little too much, but that is part of my life. Do you have children? What role do you play with that? Just take it on the day of the life of, and, you know, this is where you can go beyond the 5 to 10 recommended stories and just have fun with it. I think people really, really love it, and they love to get to know you in that way. Let's see here. Taryn says, day in the life is good. I would totally watch that for people. Yeah, so if you haven't tried that yet, Taryn, that might be a way for you to start getting some engagement, right? If someone else out there, one of your followers, can resonate with how you live your daily life, maybe that's a way to connect with them or start to have one-on-one conversations. Awesome. And then let me know how it goes when you try it. Other building trust are secret tips. That is sort of like a how-to, but secret tips like, do you have settings for your camera that you love to use? Are you obsessed with a certain food prop? If you have a lot of winter light, do you use artificial light, or what do you do to manage that, right? Secret tips that let people feel like you're giving something away that's super, super valuable, but you and I know that it's not your secrets, right? It's not going to be a secret that means that anyone can replicate your business, because we know that's not true. But some secret tips to really go above and beyond and let your customers know that, or your followers know that you're there for them and you want to engage with them. Okay, I have 2 more things to talk about with y'all, but do you have any questions about the 4 types of Instagram stories? We're going to go into best practices next, so you'll walk away with a lot more tangible tips. Sorry, there's a fruit fly in my office. No questions yet. Okay, so we're going to just move right along into best practices. So now that you have these 4 general categories for Instagram stories, how often are you actually supposed to post? Kind of what are the more logistics behind Instagram stories? So best practices, I would recommend starting out with posting 5 to 10 times per day. You don't want to overwhelm your audience. Are there bloggers and influencers out there who post more than that? 20, 30, 2 times, 4 times? Yes. At the end of the day, you need to realize what works for you, what works for your followers, and what they're going to be into. But I think if you're starting out or if you're looking to have more of a strategy and more consistency, start with 5 to 10 Instagram stories a day and just see how that feels. Maybe you're giving away something really valuable and you just need like 13 to 15 stories. That's okay. There's no right or wrong answer. In my experience working with small business owners, I know that 5 to 10 Instagram stories is much more realistic than 15 to 20. And oftentimes it can be less overwhelming for your followers. And then again, just to touch on the 5 to 10, that really encourages you to take a step back and realize, okay, what are the most valuable talking points I can go over today? How can I pare down if there's just way too many things in my day in the life of, can I pare down a little bit and show like the 15 best parts of my life? Best not meaning good. You can share your struggles as well. I think vulnerability is important. But what are the really, really top stories that I want people to see? Rachel says, those that post over 10 stories, I don't watch them at all. I get stories overload. Yeah, so this is a reason why you don't necessarily need to have more than 10 or more than 15. Be really careful about overloading your audience. If they feel like it's just too much, you could risk losing them as an Instagram stories follower. And we really, really want to encourage people to engage with us and stay in there, stay in it till the end. Okay, the question, 5 to 10 is in 5 to 10 slides in an Insta story. Yes. So 5 to 10 total slides or videos or photos, but yes, correct, slides. If any of you listen to Tyler McCall, he's a social media person as well. One of his little quotes about frequency is, don't let your lines become dots. And I thought that was really, really cool and a really cool visual, because you really don't want your Instagram slides or Instagram stories, your little lines at the very top of your phone to become dots. When they become dots, there's just a lot of them and people are probably going to just skip over them. Yes, I was just going to share about the lines and dots. Yeah, Amy, so you listened to that one too, maybe you heard it somewhere else, but I love that little visual. I think that's really, really helpful. So if you're new to Instagram stories or you're just trying to get more consistent, shoot for 5 to 10 times per day. Don't overwhelm your audience, but don't treat it as a hard answer. Yes, there may be times where you have more than 10, or maybe you forget one day and you have none. It's okay. Don't stress out about it. The next tip for best practice is post at different times throughout the day to reach your followers. We know that people aren't on every minute of every day. Or if they are, they probably shouldn't be. And so I would try to space out your Instagram story so that you're getting different people throughout the day. So maybe something in the morning, maybe at 2 or 3 in the morning, and then maybe you hop back on in the afternoon and share a few more stories. And then sometime in the evening, if you're on your phone then, or if you're okay with being on your phone then you share a few more. So just think about it. If you share 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, and then 3 in the evening, that's already 9 Instagram stories, right? So that is a piece of cake and a really good way for you to just keep in touch with people, stay top of mind for all of your followers, but not overwhelm them. They're only getting a few stories at a time, very easily digestible, great way to connect with your followers. So try posting at different times per day. Third tip I have for you is show your face so that followers can get to know you and relate to you. This is the biggest sticking point for a lot of people, especially if you're new to Instagram stories, because some people really, really are uncomfortable showing their face on Instagram stories. So if that's you, you can just comment in the chat, or if you've tried it before and you've turned out that you've loved showing your face in Instagram stories, I would just love to hear how you feel about showing your face in Instagram stories. But if you can sort of get over that hump and just rip off the Band-Aid, people are really going to feel like they get to know you, right? Because they get to see you face to face. Obviously, they're not talking to you live, but it feels like you're talking to them, which is awesome. You've got a window into their direct messages. Can you spark some conversation and just start to build relationships that way? I noticed that the business owners I've worked with, they get a lot more engagement on Instagram stories when they show their face versus when they don't. For example, if they only use photos and text-only stories. So just think about that and sit on it a little bit and let me know if you're going to commit to showing your face on Instagram stories. Next tip I have, so if you ever do videos or if you're showing your face on the front-facing camera, make sure you add some text and captions that briefly describe your stories. And this is so that if people are watching with the sound off, which happens a lot, people are on the go, they're in a public place where they maybe don't want to have the volume on, they can still follow along, right? They don't have to turn on their volume to know what you're saying. So if you are going to have a video and you're talking into the speaker, I would take a little bit of extra time and add some captions or some text just to put what you're talking about in context so that people can follow along, again, without necessarily turning on the volume. And if your caption is captivating enough and maybe they miss something or they want to hear your voice, they're going to go back and probably turn the volume on. So great way to just stay top of mind again and to just be there for your followers is to add text and captions. Okay, 2 more tips. Bear with me. The next one is trying different features to spice up your stories. If you've seen all the fun stickers that are present on Instagram stories right now, they're all so much fun. I'm talking about GIFs and all the different options you have for stickers, emoji stickers, timestamps. Sometimes they come out with seasonal stickers. Hashtags you can definitely use on stories, and I will find out how many hashtags you can include on an Instagram story, as well as music. For some reason, my music sticker disappeared. I don't have that option anymore, but I know, is Dana H on? Dana H uses a lot of music in hers, and it's so much fun. Allie, I feel like I keep talking about you just because I watch stories all the time. Allie timed her music to this one Instagram story perfectly, and I just could not get over it. Glenn says, I don't have it anymore either. I used to have it, then it disappeared. Yeah, so mine disappeared too. I don't know why. I don't know. Sometimes I just can't explain Instagram and Instagram stories the way they choose accounts. But if you have any of those stickers, use them and get creative, right? This is where you can kind of let your creative light shine and really have fun with it. This will take your stories above and beyond and just add a little bit more personality, right? Because that's what's going to captivate your followers, is if it's interesting, if it resonates with them, especially on an emotional level, and if they can get some sort of value from it. So thinking about how you can use different features to spice up your stories. Other features are like the super zoom feature. Obviously, using video, using a front-facing camera is helpful, but try those different features. And the last point, which we're going to dive into and unpack a little bit, is planning ahead and storyboarding to organize your stories. I love using a storyboard, especially if my series of Instagram stories is educational and I'm giving away value. I like planning ahead so that I know exactly what each frame is going to look like. Does that make sense to everyone? So when we're talking about storyboarding, we are literally drawing out, typing out, writing out what you're going to share in each frame of your Instagram stories. We can't illustrate on here. I don't think I can draw, but I'll try to be as descriptive as I can. So when we're talking about storyboard, I'm actually drawing out rectangles on a piece of paper and figuring out how I'm going to illustrate ideas. For example, with each progressive story, I'm sure you guys have seen this. You know, maybe you've seen one photo, and with each progressive story, there's a new line of text. So if you've seen that, just let me know in the comments if you've done it. Let me know if you had fun with that. But that is one reason why storyboarding can be helpful for that, because you need to plan out, okay, which frame is going to have which text? When am I going to add stickers? When am I going to add a GIF? Beth says, do you have a printable for storyboarding? If not, you should make one. Ooh, that's a great idea. I would love to make a printable for storyboarding for you guys. So that's a good tip. Thank you, Beth. That's such a good idea. So you try to build up a momentum with those storyboards? Yes. So with the storyboards, you do want to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Because what happens, if it's not captivating right at the beginning, people are going to either tap through it or they might skip, right? If it really, really doesn't connect with them. So your first story or your first frame should be captivating, right? What are you going to be talking about? What kind of value are you giving? What are they going to get? That should be present, whether it's a video, whether it's a photo with some text overlay, but be really clear about what you're going to share in the next, in your series of Instagram stories. In the middle, you want to have the valuable content, right? So you need to make sure your content is concise. It's easily digestible, because remember, if you're on video, you only have about 15 seconds for each story to get your message across. So the middle is going to be the meaty stuff, the content that you're ready to give away, the value that you're giving your audience, and then the last part is a wrap up. People like there to be a conclusion, right? When we're reading a story, there's a beginning, middle, and end. When we're talking to a friend, there's kind of a wrap-up. It's the way we present the information that is going to be really helpful to people. So at the end, you've got to tie it together somehow. For example, so these are my 5, I have my storyboard, I have my tips on how to show your face in Instagram stories, and at the end, I say, all right, those are my 5 tips. If you have any more questions, send me a direct message, and we'll talk about it together. That's one example of a conclusion, right? If you're talking about a recipe, let's say you're doing a behind the scenes or how to make overnight oats. At the end, maybe your last frame, can you say, all right, that was how you make overnight oats. Visit my blog for my favorite 4 overnight oats recipes, or for my latest pumpkin overnight oats recipe. How can you sort of tie it together and keep people interested and almost sort of give them a call to action? Does that make sense? You can also just ask for engagement as well. Was that helpful? Will you make your own overnight oats now? Things like that. Going back and looking at those who watch your Insta stories, what do you do with that information? What if people that do not follow you watch them? Any tips to get the conversion from them watching your stories to following you? That's a good question. I would figure out how you can make them followers, right? So whether it's saying, if you've watched my stories and you're interested in more, follow me to continue getting these helpful tips, or to continue getting my paleo recipes, or lead them to something else. Do you have an opt-in that you want them to be interested in so that they can be on your email newsletter? Some way that you can sort of keep them hooked and bring them into your community. Does that make sense? When I'm looking at Instagram stories, I'm really looking at views and if people respond. I think that's a really good way to gauge on engagement. I'm really looking for engagement. Are these people responding? Are they watching? And how can I deliver more information to keep them engaged? Ali says, I think I forget that I need to keep directing people where I want them to go. Yeah, and all it takes is just saying, visit my blog for the latest recipe, or send me your email address and I'll send you the sneak peek recipe, because I know you do that because I'm on your email. I'm basically Ali's biggest fan. So that is a way to get your people that aren't following you to potentially either follow you or go to your website or download your email freebie or get onto your email. So just asking, I think, is really helpful, giving them some direction or a call to action. So going back to the storyboards, again, thank you, Beth, for the idea for creating a printable, because I think that'll be super helpful for everyone. But draw your rectangles, figure out how you're going to illustrate your ideas, and within each frame, write down whether you're going to use a front-facing video, the camera for a photo, text only, or a screenshot of something. So you can actually write out how you're going to convey your message in each frame. And I think the best stories have a combination of everything so that it's not monotonous, right? I think it can be possibly a little boring if you have 10 stories where your face is really close to the camera, you've got no captions, and you're just talking the entire time, versus taking the same 10 stories, the same 10 ideas, but diversifying it. So maybe in the first one, it's a video where you're talking to the camera and introducing the topic. Maybe in the second frame, it's a photo of what you're trying to illustrate with some text overlay. Maybe in the third frame, it is just text. So seeing how you can diversify your stories and in your storyboard to really make it captivating, right? Remember, we're trying to keep people hooked from the beginning through the middle, all the way till the end, so that they end up taking some sort of action, whether it's they're going to make the recipe, they're sending you a direct message, they're hopping onto your email newsletter, or they're going to your feed. Maybe you're trying to point them to your latest post in your Instagram feed. So that is the storyboard. I love doing that for my bigger ideas. I don't necessarily do it for my day in the life ofs. It's more for the really, really meaty stuff, the stuff that is going to be really, really valuable to your followers. And you'll find that planning ahead will really allow you to get more engagement over time, right? If you guys have ever kind of just opened up Instagram one day and been like, okay, I know I need to do some Instagram stories, I don't really know what to talk about. And you're kind of just sitting there for a couple minutes and wondering what you're going to talk about. By planning ahead, you're really going to have a clear strategy of how to connect with your customers, build a trust and credibility, and get them to take action, whether it's hiring you, whether it's purchasing products that you have, other offers, or going to your website. So my recommendation for you is to sit down at the beginning of each week. Just spend about 15 minutes. Don't spend too much time on this. Don't get stressed out over it. But every week at the beginning of the week, sit down for 15 minutes and ask yourself, what is going to be the theme for this week? Or maybe even it's just the day. What do I want my followers to know about? What do I want them to know about me for this week or this day? So for example, I think I saw Carissa do its pumpkin week. So maybe at the beginning of the week, she would sit down and plan out, okay, which recipes am I going to talk about? Am I going to make any pumpkin recipes on Instagram stories? Am I going to share any previously existing recipes for pumpkin? What's going to happen? So by sitting down and just spending 10 to 15 minutes and writing out what you're going to share, storyboard a little bit, and just have a little bit more of an idea of what you're going to talk about, it's going to be so much easier for you when you're busy and scrambling during the week to get content up. And that's the biggest struggle, right, is time. I hear that a lot. I don't have time to be on Instagram. I don't have time to make Instagram stories. If you can set aside time in advance, you're going to end up saving time in the long run. This printable would help a lot because I cannot imagine right now, how could I plan it? Yeah, I know it's hard for me to like describe all of these rectangles to you guys, these very arbitrary shapes, but I will definitely love to do the printable. Taryn is asking, Jess, how often do you recommend switching up the types of stories, like out of 7 days, 2 days of 3 of the types, and 1 days of the 4th? That's a really good question. I would start out with doing whatever's easiest for you. So maybe today it's 10 stories about promotion. Are you trying to promote any blog posts, any recipes, any sponsorships that you're working on? And then you leave it at that because it's easy for you to just do one thing at a time. And then maybe tomorrow you talk about brand awareness. Do you have frequently asked questions that followers ask you, or your most loyal followers? And then maybe the next day you do a day in the life of. So I would break it up a little bit that way. Sometimes if you combine too many types, the amount of stories increases, right? And maybe your lines start to become dots. So just being aware of that. So see how it feels to try one category each day. Or if you really want to stretch it out, maybe one category every few days. And just see. I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer here. I think it really is about what's working for your brand and what's going to get your followers to really engage with you. However, I don't think there's anything wrong with interspersing some bits of day in the life of throughout your stories. So let's say, every morning you have tea with almond milk or something like that. And if that can be your day in the life of, and you just want to tell people about your morning routine, but then you go into promotion or brand awareness, and then maybe you come back to, gotta pick up the kids from school, it's 2 p.m. And then after that you go into, 4 pumpkin recipes you can make for your family this season. So thinking about it that way too. What flows naturally to you, and what do you think of when you think of someone that you really enjoy following in Instagram stories? What are they doing? So So that actually might be a good thing for all of us to do, is go back through the people you follow, the brands or the bloggers that you really, really enjoy engaging with. What about their Instagram stories do you really like and do you appreciate? That's not to say you can copy them, but you can be inspired and sort of use that as inspiration for how you're going to structure your Instagram stories. Does that make sense, Taryn? Hopefully that was helpful. I know that was like kind of an answer, but not really a specific one. But just to kind of wrap up here, so we talked about the 4 main categories of Instagram stories, right? We talked about promotion, we talked about brand awareness, we talked about getting more engagement and feedback, and then building trust. And all of those together will just give you a really well-rounded presence on Instagram, and especially Instagram stories, so that you can start having one-on-one conversations, right? Hopefully converting people. And for you, that might mean converting them and bringing them to your website, or getting them to make a recipe, and really, really growing your business. I love using Instagram. However, my main audience is over on Facebook. Do I attempt to encourage them to move on over to Instagram too, since I enjoy it more? That is a tricky question. The first thing that I would say is you might find it helpful for your business to be where your audience is, right? If most of your followers are on Facebook, is it worth doing Facebook stories or hopping on Facebook Live, or seeing how you can apply those 4 types of Instagram stories, right? Just those 4 big ideas on Facebook. Right? Maybe there are times where you do brand awareness, times where you show how-tos, time where you talk about your brand values. Just from a professional standpoint, I would recommend going where your audience is. But I do hear you when you say you enjoy Instagram more. I do love Instagram. So maybe it's figuring out how much time you're going to devote to Facebook versus Instagram, right? Can you still stay on Instagram and be really valuable, but still cater to most of your audience if they're on Facebook? I like how you have the same colored cover on each story or highlights in your account. How did you do this? Yes, so highlights. That's a very good question. So highlights are found in your Instagram profile, right? They're just under your bio, and it's basically a really, really good sneak peek into what your brand is all about. And what I did to get the same color and the same story is I used Canva, which is a really simple graphic design app or website, because I'm not a graphic designer. I need things to be as simple as possible. So I created those highlights in Canva. I just made sure I picked the same color. I chose a little icon, and I used that as the cover of my highlights. What you have to do to get those on there is add them to your story. So those, like, I don't know how many categories I have on my highlights, but those like 5 categories, to get those branded colors and icons, I just had to post them to Instagram stories. So it was like a 5 throwaway posts, just so that I could add them to my highlights. Does that make sense? So if you have graphic design experience and you like Photoshop, then go to Photoshop. I like Canva. It's super easy to use. It's free, unless you want to have a business account. But the highlights are really important for just giving your new followers just a first glance, a first impression. What are things you really want them to know about your business? And even for returning customers, what are things that are really important that you need them to know? Highlights are a great place to add frequently asked questions, maybe latest recipes, or if that's too big of a category, fall recipes, or easy, quick recipes, or really anything about your brand that you want people to know about. So those are the 4 categories of Instagram stories. Try those out. See how it feels to share about those, and plan out your weeks, and also storyboard. I do want to get that printable up now. That is like the only thing I can think about because I'm so excited. But try the storyboarding and see how that feels for you. And then just to kind of wrap up here, I'd love it if you guys had any more questions, if you want to type them in the chat and I will answer them. Amy says, this has really sparked some ideas for me for stories. Yes, you're so welcome. And if after you're watching this, whether you're live or you're watching the replay, and you're just really confused and you don't really know where to go, send me a message. We can work together one-on-one and just sort of plan out your content for you. You can just send me an email or a direct message. And then stay tuned. We're going to do some hot seats in the Facebook group. So hot seats are people coming on, and I will basically coach you kind of live. But stay tuned for that. And thank you guys. If you have any other questions, let me know. I'm in the group. Send me a message or tag me in the comments. Hope you guys have a great day. Yes, goodbye.